Speaker.
Carmel Cipollone.
Mr Speaker, I just want to say today is a clear indication that the government has lost their way. They have been so on message the whole time that they've been in government, but now they're all over the place, Mr Speaker. You can see they're in disarray. We can see they're in disarray. And they're in disarray because, Mr Speaker, Northland was the beginning of the end for that national government.
That's right.
Mr Speaker, I want to start by actually congratulating the awesome candidate we had in the Northland, and that was Willow Jean Prime. She did a fabulous job, Mr Speaker, and despite whatever that side of the House might say, we are very proud of our candidate Willow Jean Prime, and we are looking forward to seeing her in here in 2017. And Mr Speaker, I don't know whether the national government can say the same about the candidate they put up in Northland.
Right.
I'm not sure, Mr Speaker, whether they're looking forward to seeing him run again or even in here in 2017, 2020 or any other time moving forward, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, Northland was the beginning of the end for the national government. Northland showed very clearly that the regions have had enough of being taken advantage of, Mr Speaker. They knew that when National went in there promising them 10 bridges and all of these other things, that actually they had been neglected for a very long time. Here was the pork barrel politics being rolled out by that national government. They didn't appreciate it, Mr Speaker, and they lost because of it. Mr Speaker, what we're seeing here today are really the 5 stages of grief from that side of the House.
That's right.
And because we like to support our parliamentary colleagues, I thought, in order to be able to assist with the counselling of that side of the House, that I would look up the 5 stages of grief. And what we're seeing, Mr Speaker, is that all of them are at different stages of that kind of grief model. We've got the first stage being denial and isolation. And we hear the denial and isolation screaming out from Nikki Wagner over there, denying the fact that National has done anything wrong, denying the fact that the regions have given up on the National Party. Nikki Wagner is clearly still in the denial phase. The second phase of the stages of grief, Mr Speaker, is anger. And we saw that very clearly today with Simon Bridges.
That's right.
Screaming at Phil Goff.
Yes, that's right.
Screaming because, Mr Speaker, he's struggling with the realisation that he's been tainted by the 10 bridges. Struggling with the realisation that he's been made to look like a fool by his leader and his national government. So Simon Bridges is clearly going through the stage of anger. The third stage of grief, Mr Speaker, is the stage of bargaining. Now, Mr Speaker, I've heard many of the National Party MPs talking so nicely about Winston Peters and his win off the record. It's very interesting, Mr Speaker. We are starting to wonder if the bargaining is actually beginning between National and New Zealand First. Well, an attempt at bargaining by National as they try to woo Winston Peters and New Zealand First, knowing full well that they no longer have the numbers to push through things like their RMA reforms, Mr Speaker. The fourth stage of grief, and we've seen a lot of this today, I think this is really the stage where a lot of the National MPs are at, is that stage of depression. Depression, Mr Speaker. We've been watching from this side of the House as they bow their heads in depression, looking very sad, sitting there quietly, unsure of what to say, no longer able to even laugh at the Prime Minister's failed attempts at jokes. Mr Speaker, many of that side of the House are clearly going through the stage of depression. And Mr Speaker, the last stage of grief that we hope we can assist the national government with getting to is that stage of acceptance, the fifth stage of grief. Mr Speaker, that side of the House needs to accept that Northland was the beginning of the end, that the regions have lost faith in the national government, and that in 2017 New Zealand will be voting them out. Thank you very much.
Very good.